but I have promised that I'll share the video on the Pimento Catch-Up channel on YouTube. That's Pimento Agency YouTube. This is our 31st week since we've been sort of broadcasting these events, so thanks for joining us once again. The UK, I guess, has recorded, well, I heard yesterday we recorded 367 more COVID deaths, sadly, yesterday. It's the highest number since the 27th of May. And the Prime Minister is coming under intense pressure from the Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, to ramp up restrictions across the UK. As I understand at the moment, there's also a warning that there will be a tougher Tier 3 restrictions by mid-December. What impact that will have on Christmas for us, I really don't know. But by the end of this week alone, 8 million people in the UK will be under lockdown. Well, positively, Pfizer are at the late stage of the development of their vaccine trial. They've enrolled 42,000 volunteers. So far, 36,000 of those volunteers have received the second of their 2-dose COVID vaccine. So hopefully we'll be able to see some results from there pretty soon. They're working with a German drug maker, BioNTech, on experimental vaccine. So fingers crossed. But I'd say this week is really about the younger people in our agencies, getting their perspective on what life has been like in the world of COVID, and really beginning to understand their unique pressures and concerns as we go forward. I'm really pleased. We've got a great panel of under 30s with us today. Bright young things, all of them. First and foremost, Gabriella, also known as Gabby. I will attempt to pronounce your surname, Fanak, I think that's correct, or in the region of. Gabriella has been in the video and film production industry for just over 2 years and works as a project manager at Aid Vision, an agency based in London. Her strengths are working with fine detail and making sure the content is being delivered to the very highest possible standards. She started out as an intern at Aid Vision and was given the opportunity to take a full-time role there. Aid Vision, for those that don't know, are an award-winning content producer, both big screens and small. They work in Europe and North America and create video, hybrid events, augmented reality and interactive video experiences. So our first under 30 is from that world. Our second is from equally a challenging environment at the moment, which is the world of events and experiential. Annabelle West is head of operations at Smart Live. She joined the Smart Live team in the summer of 2019 as a project manager after working 4 years as an account manager and events producer at Blueprint Partners. Her clients have included in the past Jaguar Land Rover, Aston Martin and the Prince's Trust. Smart Live is a London-based events marketing management organisation. Smart Live combines a culture of research and development with a dynamic and talented team generating fresh ideas that are executed seamlessly. And of course, like a lot of the events agencies, they've had to adapt to the new normal and have transferred a lot of their skills from live entertainment into the virtual and hybrid world. Thank you for joining us, Annabelle. Molly Maillard-Skelton is Digital Marketing Executive at Pimento. Molly completed a placement year with Pimento back in 2017. We were running a program at the time, which we hope to reinstate as we get to the other side of COVID, where she had the opportunity to work in 10 different agencies across a multiple of marketing disciplines. And that unique placement scheme gave her really good insight into the world of marketing and communications. She qualified with a first in business studies in 2018. And we were quick to grasp and quick to offer her a job. And she's now been working at Pimento now for 2 years. She handles all things digital for Pimento and manages our members. I'm delighted she can join us today. She's also the Pimento portal guru. So for those members that are struggling with their portal or want to update it, she is the lady to speak to. Sandy T hails from the world of brand and branding. She's originally from Canada. She graduated at the John Molson School of Business in Montreal with a degree in marketing before moving to London. Sandy works at the integrated marketing agency in Montreal, where she managed multiple campaigns on both offline and offline platforms. She found a new home with the Someone team in London 2 years ago, and she's managed a broad range of different projects. Most recently, she's completed the campaign development for a new identity for historic England. She's also worked on Cannes Lions, Z, and Reed exhibitions. Someone is an award-winning creative practice. It's listed as the UK's #1 design company in 2020 Creative Pool rankings, and Someone invents brands with clients or reinvents them. James Knight is surname you might recognise as Account Director at the Partnership. James' love of the ad industry began at a young age. It says here when his father dragged him to meetings across London during his school holidays. I don't recall that. After graduating at university 7 years ago, he's worked at Ogilvy, Proximity and Publicis, Boohis, and a couple of independents. He now works at the Partnership, formerly known as CHI, on the Toyota Europe account. And his focus is primarily on CRM and digital. The Partners are an organisation that really embraces the old concept of full service agency. Their proposition, Power and, is an amalgamation of the traditional advertising agency model of media buying and planning, as well as digital expertise. So, great panel. Great to have you all here today. Thank you for joining us. We really, I have to confess, we really haven't spent enough time with the younger members of the network in recent months. There's been a lot to discuss. There's been a lot of pressures on everyone. It's great to have so many interested parties with us today. I think we've been joined by Stephen Woodford. I think he's somewhere there. Woody's somewhere in the background, who's president of the Advertising Association. So Woody, thanks for joining us. Let's start with a question for Annabelle, if I may. So what's been the most difficult thing for you, Annabelle, about lockdown?
Well, for me, as I've obviously been an events agency and I'm one of the team there, we had to adapt very quickly to the new environment. At the very beginning of COVID, unfortunately, there was a bit of an outcome that could potentially be what was going to happen to the agency. Were we going to actually exist in 6 months' time? And for me, furlough really did save our company and saved a lot of the team. So I was put onto furlough for 2 months. And from a personal perspective as well, my boyfriend was put on furlough for 4 months and we'd only just moved in 2 weeks before. So that was definitely a little bit testing for both of us. But yeah, from a professional perspective as well, not having that day-to-day work was definitely the hardest, to be able to keep motivated, keep doing things, engaging in things like the Pimento weekly updates and anything really webinar style, so I could just keep things going and keep a bit of structure in my life. That was definitely hugely challenging. And then off the back of that, coming back into work, we're only kind of part-time at the moment. And so that for me is pretty difficult as well, to keep things going and also to keep that work-life balance.
Thanks, Annabelle. Gabby, what's been good about virtual working for you?
Most of our clients are in the US, so we are not strangers to virtual meetings and Zoom and things like that. So from that perspective, not much changed for us in terms of talking to clients, but on a personal level, it was good. Some of our editors live abroad, so it was nice for them to go home, and we were able to connect with each other via Slack or Zoom. So that was definitely good, and it showed us that we can basically work from anywhere. All I need is my computer, access to the internet, and we're ready to go. It showed me that we have freedom to work from anywhere. It was really hard, during hard lockdown, to see family. So once the lockdown eased, I went straight to my parents and stayed with my parents for a while, and took my laptop and I was working from my parents' house. So that was just like the best thing, after 2 months, 3 months of hard lockdown, seeing my parents and working from there. I think the other people from my team did exactly the same thing, and it was as if nothing ever changed. So that was definitely good about virtual, that we can do it from anywhere.
Thank you. Sandy, I mean, I can see you're in the office today there. And obviously being in the business you're in terms of brand and brand development, did you witness, or did either Gary or anyone else in the team witness a kind of impact on creativity when people were working remotely?
Not quite. So obviously, I guess the main thing that we missed and the reason why we all came back to studio is just being able to just sort of collaborate and quickly check in on certain things without having to create a Zoom link or Google Hangouts link to catch up with coworkers. But I think definitely going into lockdown, it forced us to adapt really, really quickly, to get really agile. And I think, just in the last couple of weeks, we've put out some of our best work that's actually gone live. There's a lot of amazing work that's actually come out of lockdown. And I guess it's just kind of an attestament to the fact that lockdown kind of brought us all together. As a team, we kind of realized that we needed that sort of open linked communication to be a lot more stronger between us. And I think it's kind of going back to Gabriella's point, it kind of goes to show that you could probably, manage to make it happen. You're kind of forced to make it happen, and great things can come out of it.
Thank you. And James, for you, I mean, what's been the impact on sort of work-life balance for you? Have you found yourself working harder, or you've been slacking off?
Definitely not slacking off. I think the difficulty comes in getting yourself away from your laptop. I know a lot of guys who are working from their bedroom. So frankly, all they do is they get up, look at their laptop, go straight from bed to their desk, and then that becomes their home for the next God knows how many hours. And trying to get yourself away from it and being really disciplined in yourself to take a lunch break, to take half an hour to go walk around, all that sort of stuff. I think, especially at the start, became very difficult for people. I think it was a bit manic for the first probably month and a half, with everyone getting up to speed with how Teams worked, or Skype, or every other technology that the IT department threw at you in that first few weeks to try and get to work. And then beyond that, it's just been a case of telling yourself to close your laptop at whenever, as soon as you can do, and not answering emails, taking off notifications on your phone. But I think as time's gone on, I think it's been easier. Summer was better, obviously, because generally we were a bit quieter because clients were away, which meant it was easier to get away from work maybe on a Friday afternoon, and if there was any decent weather to get outside. I think the challenge will come over the next few months as things get really busy towards the back end of the year, and try and deliver lots of campaigns, making sure that you're still taking that time to get away and, spend some time for yourself and, see people where you can, and obviously in a COVID secure way, but not staying chained to your desk.
Thank you. And for you, if I may, Molly, obviously, one of the biggest challenges has been the fact that if people have to be shielded for any shape reason, then it's particularly difficult on them. Can you just tell us a little about your experiences of actually lockdown, but more importantly also how you foresee the future 6 months? So obviously, the first few months when we were on lockdown, then obviously went into the summer period where things were more relaxed. We're now sadly seeing a kind of a force back into that environment of actually having to certainly work from home. Do you foresee changes in the workplace over the next 6 months?
I hope so. From my own experience, what James said, the lack of routine, I felt like I was a bit chained to my desk, because I found myself in the whole week not actually leaving the house really, which is difficult because you do really have to be strict and kind of be motivated to try and take those breaks. I still struggle. I still don't really take a lunch break. It's so easy just to eat in front of your desk, and then when it's time to clock off, to leave your laptop open, then just kind of answer emails when you're cooking. But in the future, I think as long as that businesses do create more flexible working for people, then I think it'll be easier, so people can work how they want to work and then therefore thrive.
This one, thank you, Molly. This one's kind of open to any of you guys and girls, and that's really to do with agency culture. When I entered the industry a long time ago, there were lots of reasons I went into marketing and advertising. But actually, the central reason was because of the people, and it was all about the talent, about the experience, about the fun of work. Now, clearly, there's not much fun at the moment, and I just wonder, how do you see agency owners, as well as yourselves, because you're also responsible for maintaining that culture and finding ways to actually ingrain people, particularly new starts?
I guess it's a bit of a challenge, because a lot of people see culture as having Thursday drinks, or just having a bar available, which isn't really the culture. It should be about how you buy into, and everyone's bought into a common purpose. I think that's the thing that I think personally my agency struggled with a lot in the last few months, is making people aware of what you're all working towards, not just from a client's perspective, but what the agency wants to try and fulfill. And we've had loads of socials, or we have weekly drinks and stuff like that, all virtually and everything. And our office has fortunately been open pretty much from about May time for people to go and see each other. But even so, I think that I think one of those things, it started off, they did lots of Zoom calls, lots of socials, lots of quizzes. It was really good fun. And then people felt that, especially we've had loads of new starters recently, so it felt they were a part of something. But then that sort of tailed off as we've got busier. So I think it's one of those things that always falls to the bottom of the to-do list, but I think it's integral that we still have them. I know we're doing it in smaller teams personally at the moment, but I think it's a wider agency responsibility to come together as often as you can and celebrate success. That's the one thing you miss about being together. You can't all embrace when a campaign goes live or something great happens, because you're not there to physically witness it.
So how often, James, are there a sort of agency-wide get-togethers? Is that kind of a weekly thing?
We have a weekly thing. It's sort of half sort of training / a bit of work presentation, half social. But unfortunately, as we've got busier and because it's easier to skip it because it's on Zoom, attendance has gone through the floor, and it's not that, and you haven't got that drive from senior management to say you really need to be at these sessions. So it doesn't feel like it's as important as it was when we were in the office, where people were bringing in stuff and it felt a lot more of a collaborative piece.
Okay, what about Sandy for you? I mean, obviously you're back in the office too, and you're doing what James is doing, which is a couple of days in the office, a few days at home. How's management embraced and engaged around culture and communications and trying to make everyone feel that they are part of a team?
I think it's similar to sort of what James is mentioning about when we were actually in lockdown doing a lot of these sort of activities. So we burned through the quiz rather quickly, but then we had to be really creative and sort of coming up with things that would bring us all together, give us a little bit of a laugh, whether it was giving everyone a brief, including non-creatives, to do a little self-portrait and just kind of going through them and doing a guessing game. So just making sure that even for the new starters, right, making sure that they feel included. And I guess it's easy for us coming back into a studio. It's a lot easier to have sort of these informal chats, just like by the water cooler sort of thing or by the kitchen. And I guess now with sort of lockdown measures slowly kind of creeping in, I think the sort of pub going has kind of dwindled lower and lower. But I think we try to do it in a sort of more socially distant, compliant way in the studio that ends at a reasonable hour nowadays. And really, I think the key to all this is just about transparency. So what's been really key here is having a clear message and updates whenever there's new updates from the government. We expect one within hours from management team. It's just about having these open lines of communication when things are so uncertain. And I think there's also that transparency around, understanding that even the management team is still trying to figure this out, as everyone is. And I think that makes it a lot easier to deal with, makes us kind of come together, in unison, as opposed to, there's a couple of things that we're unsure about, left in the dark. So that's been really, really useful for us on our side.
It seems like there's a kind of sense of all in this together, I guess. I know.
Absolutely.
For Gabby and Molly, you ventured back into the office, as it were. I know Annabelle has and has been sort of bouncing backwards and forwards, but for you both, as you say, you both feel being resigned and sitting in barracks, as it were. When it comes to, and you've worked for relatively small organisations, when it comes to actually communication, I mean, Gabby, you and Andy and the rest of your team, is it a daily occurrence? You get together socially outside of kind of work-related stuff?
Yeah, so we are a very small team, but what we do really well is communicating. We are on the Zoom for briefings once a day, every single morning, ever since we start working from home. Every single morning we have a meeting, and what we find important is it's talking to each other. Otherwise, you're going to go insane. We find time to talk 3 times a day sometimes, as if we're in the office, leaning back in your chair and having a conversation about life or what's going on around the world or just personal. I think I also found it important to talk about personal things and, saying that you're okay or you're not okay. I think it's hard to say, I'm struggling to cope during lockdown. I don't know how to deal with this. I found it quite difficult. For personal reasons, I had a death in the family as well, so that was really difficult for me. And for me, I didn't want to put that burden onto my family members that I lived with, so it was really nice that my team was there for me as well. When they asked me, how am I? And I said, okay. And they were like, no, but how are you really? So that was really important that, colleagues are also there for you. And it was important for me, and I think for other people to know that your team is there for you. So that was really important. And, we do talk all the time, which I think brought us so much closer together and, made us really good friends at the end. So that's from a small team perspective, that's definitely, communication was key for us.
And I think the 2 points you touch on there, obviously the pressures are, from a mental health point of view, are on everyone, aren't they? Regardless of how strong you are, how senior you are, how old you are, the reality is this is a tough time for everyone. And it's good to hear, because I think actually in many instances, relationships are actually stronger, oddly enough, as a result of COVID, because people have been more open. They have sort of shared their burdens and their concerns and their worries and their fears and so on, which is, is really, really positive.
And also on that, there's something quite interesting about you're seeing into someone's home. I know it's a bit weird, but you naturally become a bit more close to someone if you can see them interacting with their dog or their kids running in the background, and it sort of takes the veneer off some of like when you see someone in the office who seems to have it all together and just like is like perfect, but actually in reality when their kids running through and they're trying to have a meeting whilst also, you know, stop the dog from barking, it sort of takes all that off it, and it makes it much more sort of like human interaction versus any sort of hierarchy just goes completely out the window.
That's certainly true, isn't it? There's been, I think, Tina Fegan was on the call last week, the marketing procurement specialist, and she said that the two things that she's really enjoyed, apart from missing the chocolate biscuits that she normally gets from agencies when she's going pitches, is the fact that she's been able to actually take a nose at people's houses, and sit in the environment and just kind of understand how people operate and work. Annabelle, tell me about yourself, because I know you bounce backwards and forwards between the office and obviously being in the brand experience space and the event space. I mean, COVID's been pretty much a disaster for that category.
Yeah, it has been. It has actually been a total disaster, to be totally honest. I am very lucky, though, that I've got some video background, and a lot of the events that I used to run had hybrid elements. So we used to do a lot of live streaming anyway to colleagues across Europe and things like that. So we were very quick to jump onto the bandwagon of, okay, we need to actually get into actually hosting conferences virtually, not just through Zoom and Teams, but actually seeing how we can transform them into a high production value events that isn't mundane, that actually has interaction with people. And we've all worked very closely as a team to be able to learn as quickly as we can to be able to get these offerings out to our clients for really what they need, because communication at the moment, as Sandy said earlier, is completely vital, whether it's internal between communications, whether it's to your customers. Everyone really does need to be communicating with people more than ever. And that's where we're trying to partner up with as many of our clients as possible to keep those communication events going.
Tell me about the virtual Christmas parties that we won't be having this year. Is there much call for that at the moment?
Surprisingly, there is actually. We've actually just sent out our latest offering of party in a box style things. And we're working with loads of clients on how everyone can actually still have a little bit of fun together, whether that's through activities, whether that's just sending out a case of wine to people to be able to enjoy together, or it's just a gift for people. I think, to be honest, the main thing for Christmas for everyone this year is just to say thank you to everyone. I think no matter what company you are, no matter where you're working, no matter who you are, everyone's had some form of hardship this year. Everyone's gone through something. And what is very nice, though, is that leaders and management and employees all the same have gone through something. So just to be able to say thank you to everyone, whether that's sending a gift home to people, I think is really important. And I think that's what's going to make companies over the next year either keep their employees going and keep them motivated to work for them, or to actually go, you know what, this isn't where I want to be, because they're not actually appreciating me and thanking me.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. I think, on that point, if there's anything you want to share after today's call in terms of tips and ideas around Christmas and that sort of thing you're doing for your clients, A, hopefully it might be able to drum up some business for you, and B, I think all of us feel a duty of care and are concerned about the people that we work with. And of course, it's not just obviously, the people who are directly employed, but equally it's the other support services and of course our clients. Talking about clients, I'm really interested to understand how clients have behaved during the crisis. Have you seen a marked change in the way in which they've responded to you, James?
Well, for me, it's been quite varied because I've got clients across all of Europe, which means that they've all had slightly different experiences and slightly different sort of restrictions to live within. And their attitude is varied very much depending on where they live. So my main clients are based in Belgium, and they've had a very similar situation to what we've had in terms of death per capita. So they're quite conservative. I think a lot of the creativity they've done, they very much erred on the side of caution when it comes to pushing the boat out. They want to make sure they want to do what works rather than thinking outside the box and everything. But when we're talking to people, say in Germany or Italy, maybe in the last few months, there's been a lot more forcing. They want to get back to back to normal, back to where they were, really pushing the envelope in terms of briefs. I think the biggest thing for us has been the challenge that our clients weren't super at talking to each other when they're in the office. When they're out of the office, it's becoming a real challenge to disseminate the information between the various teams and departments. As you can imagine, someone like Toyota has got every department under the sun, and they are very siloed. So trying to break down those silos has been a particular challenge. That being said, I think on the whole, it's probably made our relationship stronger. We've gone from sort of weekly statuses and ad hoc meetings to having daily stand-ups every morning at 9 o'clock our time and 10 o'clock over there, which has definitely strengthened the bond in terms of their reliance on us and understanding us as a partner versus, you know, a supplier or anything like that. So overall, I think it's been positive, but it's just been interesting to see the different attitudes coming out of each country depending on their own situation.
Okay. Anyone else? I'd be interested to know how your clients have responded.
I mean, from my perspective, a lot of our clients have called on us to be able to come up with solutions for them. They don't necessarily know what they want at the moment, but they know that they need to do something or say something or whatever it might be. And what we've created over the last couple of months with a lot of our clients is become their friends more than anything. I think jumping on that point of actually you can see into people's homes. One of my clients has the moodiest 14-year-old daughter ever and is having the worst time with her at the moment. And I mean, the amount of phone calls I've got from her ranting about her daughter is so many of them. But what's lovely about that is actually you get to know someone personally. You can actually just pick up the phone to them. Whereas before, when we used to go into an office, have to dress up super smart and walk in with your briefcase and you've got your laptop in hand with all your proposals ready to present a PowerPoint and everything. It's far more informal now, and you're actually able to get to know someone and really understand and break down the barriers as to what they need professionally and what they also need from a personal level to be able to make their life easier.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. From my perspective, 95% of our clients are in the US, so they're not in a great position in terms of COVID and politics right now. But I think what they realize, this is the most important time to commission work. You know, everyone's at the screens. In America, most of the people are still working from home or in the lockdown. So everyone's at the screens. So from a video perspective, we have been really, really busy, which is great. We've been working through lockdown. So we've been pretty busy. I've been commissioning a lot of work, a lot of marketing work. But I think back to James's point, I think this made our relationship stronger. You know, we are in this together. We are here for them and they're here for us. Because, you know, everyone's struggling, maybe in different ways, but everyone's struggling. So I think we've even tried even harder to make them look good. Not like we haven't tried before, but we've tried to make them look better against their competitors. So I think this made our bond even stronger.
Okay, well, sort of taking on that point and about the importance of obviously, you know, continuing to build those relationships with your clients. One of the thoughts I had is that, you know, one of the great worries, it kind of comes back to what Annabelle was saying earlier on, is that as an industry, we're a world leader and marketing communications, you know, people around the world recognize how brilliant we are in this space. One of our challenges will be obviously to continue to actually attract and retain talent across all spheres of communications. And Stephen, I know, is doing an awful lot of work and has been lobbying, working with government, making sure that people are protected at this time. And so we'd like to bring him into the conversation, really, just kind of get his point of view of you know, what we can be doing to support our younger people at this stage.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak, and thank you very much to all the voices we've heard so far. I really wanted to listen to what you were all saying, because, you know, we talk a lot about you know, the impacts of the crisis on our industry, but we tend to talk about it very much in the abstract of looking at media spend and impacts on client spend figures and so on. And actually, you know, obviously this ultimately affects people, and so I really wanted to hear, you know, how it was affecting you all. And what I've heard this morning is very much in line with what I've been hearing from others about the impact on not just the quality of jobs and people being furloughed and so on, but actually the interaction and the collaboration that I think is such an important fuel for our industry. And I think as we go into the sort of second wave and increasing lockdowns and so on, I think people are really now beginning to value what we get when we all do work together and when we're back in offices. And I'm hearing this more and more and more, that although actually people are being advised to stay at home, there are more people just going in anyway because they want to be with their colleagues and they want the ability to interact with people. So this is going to be really difficult. And just reading in the papers this morning, just, you know, that the lockdowns are likely to be increasing before they decrease. And I don't know whether people saw very gloomy forecasts about the death rate potentially being higher in the second wave than the first. So it feels like we've got very choppy waters ahead. And in fact, this morning, apologies, we are going to, I'm just going through an email actually just to, we're announcing the release tomorrow of our latest forecast for the industry. And although we're still forecasting a strong recovery next year, the strength of that recovery has lessened from our previous quarterly forecast. There's a sense that actually things are getting worse, and this uncertainty, I think, will keep pushing that out. So whether we're going to have a V-shaped recovery, I think, is looking increasingly unlikely. So we're going to have to be prepared for this to go on for probably much longer than we were all hoping, even a month ago. So I think we're all going to have to be as innovative and as adaptable as possible to do this. And I think I was struck by the chat who said that the attendance at the all staff sort of Zoom meetings has been going down. And I think that is the sort of sense of the fatigue that is settling in here. And we've got to work, particularly I think, as not just the leaders of businesses, but I think everybody throughout the business. We all owe it to each other. We're all, this is a classic situation where we're all in it together. So I think, as much as anything, if you get invited to one of those things, turn up. There's nothing more dispiriting than if you're organising these things and seeing people can't be bothered, or just don't feel that they want to spend the time, or they're at home and they, want an extra half an hour, finish an extra half an hour early. It's really, really depressing, So I think it's basically incumbent on everybody to make the effort and support each other. It's management's job to support their clients and their employees and their all their stakeholders. Equally, it's the job of all those people, the people who are working for these businesses, to support their managements and to rally behind their business. So it's absolutely, we are all in it together, and I think that pulling together will get us through this. And I think I was talking to somebody who's just come back off furlough, back into their job, and she was just so grateful to be back. She said she'd been worrying increasingly that she was going to lose her job, and the fact that she'd been called back in was like a sort of almost like it felt like she said it felt like getting her job back, or getting a new job almost, because she'd sort of been so disconnected. So I think if you have jobs, throw obviously and I think people in employment are increasingly going to be feeling like they're very lucky, because undoubtedly unemployment is going to go up quite drastically, and we're going to see everybody's expectations is next year is going to be the biggest recession we've ever seen. So it's going to get tougher before it gets better. So that's why I think we've all got to, keep innovating, keep collaborating, make these things work while we can't all be back to normal, and help our businesses, survive and thrive, and then recover when finally the recovery does come. Sorry if that sounds a bit gloomy. I realise, looking at the forecasts and looking at the forecast for the pandemic, it is looking gloomy. So, nothing we can do about that other than make the best of it.
No, it's that, and I appreciate your frankness there. And I think you're absolutely right, Stephen. Saying that 1 out of 5 furloughed staff members have been made redundant. It's apparently kind of a national figure, which is not pretty. And that's before the end of, obviously, the period which comes to an end in the next 3 days. There are things that, on a positive note, that we can be doing. And I think one of the things that I witnessed during lockdown was that actually agencies were prepared to invest in talent and actually help them when it came to training. Now, the industry has never been particularly brilliant, if I'm honest with you, at actually exercising and developing training programs for people on a kind of one-by-one basis. And by that, what I mean is actually having a proper defined program that you take talent through. Now, I was lucky when I first came into the industry because I went through a graduate training program that lasted nearly 12 months. The reality is these days people get thrown onto the job and expected to learn as they go along. That said, right across the industry, there's fantastic programs that are available. often and not a lot of money. And I just wondered what your experience of being, at the sharp end and talking to the young ones here. Has your agency offered you training at this time, or are you expected to complete training a part of what you do? Sandy, should I start with you?
Sure. I guess, as you said, it's not really sort of a common thing in our industry to get specific training for certain things. But I think one thing that we've been really good at is sort of knowledge sharing here. So I think, all of us, when we're on lockdown, and even after that, kind of continuing on, whatever it is that we find out about in the industry or in the sector, anything COVID related even, and how to better manage clients and sort of lead them through the fog, as it were. It's all about, again, open communication, making sure we got that sort of knowledge transfer. We're also part of a sort of larger partnership, and we've kind of gotten even closer during lockdown with our partnership BCP, and just kind of working on that sort of knowledge share between all the different divisions, right? Whether it's from PR, so we've seen a lot of work collaborating with the PR teams at BCP and just working a lot more closely in order to tackle some of our customers' problems. So it's just a lot of, I guess, interdisciplinary between divisions sort of learning with each other, as opposed to formal training.
Is that true for the rest of you guys and girls?
Yeah, I'd say that's the same for me, certainly. I'm at the very beginning of lockdown, I was asked to start doing some training in various CAD programs and things like that to try and help out with venues and things. But obviously that's kind of taken obviously a bit of a back foot, given that venues aren't particularly being used at the moment. But we've done a lot of knowledge sharing between us, and we've had to learn a lot about this virtual world. So there's been a lot of us sharing different articles on what platform's the best for this and what's the best platform for that, and that has been hugely useful for all of us. And we've also learned a lot more about a wider scope of things, whereas normally, especially in the events world, I would just look after the content development, the sound staging, and pretty much anything what we call kind of inside the room, catering, things like that. I would pass over to the experts of that. However, we're now taking a lot more of a front foot in that and actually being able to reach out to different teams and working alongside everyone so that actually everyone understands everything as a cohesive piece. And it also means that we've got everyone is learning everything. So my managing director is helping me with some of my delegate management side of things, which I'd normally give to a far more junior person. But what we're having to do at the moment is we're all having to kind of step in to be able to help each other out and actually deliver projects as a whole. So it does mean that we're all learning on the job as we go. And personally, for me, that's always been my experience throughout my career. It's been just throwing it in the deep end, off you go, sink or swim. I'm hoping that I've swum so far, but we'll see.
Anyone else before we move on to the next question?
I think the good amount of this as well, there is so much support out there, and people are creating loads of webinars to help with training. And because it's all online now, it's most like this one is recorded now, so you can access it later. So I think in that sense, there is a lot more out there. And I think for a young person as well in their career at the moment, we're constantly learning and experiencing so many new things. So if you are furloughed or made redundant, I think it's really important to try and replicate that when you have time off. So try and really motivate yourself to go out there and look for support and look for more training instead of just sitting there kind of locking yourself away. So then when you do return to work, you know you're ready and you've actually learned more skills.
Yeah, that's what I did in my spare time. I don't come from like a marketing background, but I've always wanted to learn. So yeah, my boss offered, if you want to learn something, do it. In your downtime, you want to learn some marketing, go and do it. If you want to, I don't have, like, for the video production company, I don't have any technical background. I look after the project as a whole, but I don't have any knowledge in Adobe, Photoshop, After Effects, or anything like that. But if I want to learn, I can. Like, anything can be accommodated, which is great. Even if it's not something I want to do in the future, I don't want to be an editor. I think it's good to have all-round knowledge about everything, so you have an opinion, or that a certain thing can be done in this way, because I've learned that.
I totally agree. Listen, I'd like to change gear now before actually opening it up to questions from everyone on the call. And certainly the Advertising Association and many of the other associations have been championing for some period of time now more diversity across the industry. We are still, like it or not, a white middle class industry, generally speaking, which really doesn't reflect how we are as a nation. I just wondered, within your agencies and within your businesses you're working for, is there a more positive perspective in terms of how they're actually trying to drive more diversity? And equally too, when you talk to your friends and colleagues working in other agencies, etc., what their experiences are. Maybe actually, Molly, we'll start with you, because I know it's an area that you feel very passionate about, and it's great you're able to kind of, for Pimento at least, you've been obviously pushing that cause really, really strongly in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's really important. I mean, we can learn so much from different communities and different backgrounds. I mean, the industry, I think, still heavily relies on degree educated candidates. So like people, I think we need to kind of almost stop looking at people where they've studied or where they've been, and more look at their talent and if they have any kind of transferable skills. And it's also, it's not really good enough for people to say that they didn't have any, BME or people from lower class backgrounds who applied for the job. I think we need to kind of be more active and look outside of our network. Because the people from lower class backgrounds, they might not live in London, they might not have access to higher education, they might not know the right amount of people. So there's just so many initiatives out there that we can get behind. I think it's the Taylor's Bennett Foundation, which helps the communications industry recruit, more diverse people. So I just think it's really important. And also the gap, I think COVID has kind of made the gap even wider, because there was some stats I heard on the radio actually a couple of days ago that I think 3/4 of private schools got fully educated, which is double the amount of state schools. So it's just a lot harder for those people to catch up. So the people who have private schools are just already ahead, and so it's just making it a bit more fair for the recruitment process and making it more accessible for everyone.
Got a few recruiters on this call actually today, and I think it'd be quite interesting to get their views when we open up the questions in a moment, and understand exactly how brands and agencies are now actually looking for more diversity, certainly in their selection process, and also looking at alternative areas for recruiting people. So I'll be interested in Russell's view in a moment. Listen, last question for you before we open it up, and that is that you've actually been through a tough old period, and I wonder if you were advising your friends who are probably at school at the moment and looking to go into university, and perhaps not go into university but go straight into industry, what advice you would give them at this stage about joining the communications, marketing and advertising businesses. What would you be saying to them? And would you be giving them the advice to come in, or would you be saying, actually, don't go there, you want to be going into X or Y?
I definitely think I'd still suggest it as a career path. I think that the issue is, I found, that it's so easy to make comparisons now between your peer groups, because everyone sort of starts at the same point. So it's very easy for you to look at other industries, management consultancy being, I think, the biggest one that we tend to lose great talent to, because there are similar skill sets from an account management perspective, but their starting salary is probably almost double. So people tend to go down that route. But I think the thing that we need to champion is creativity. It's the one thing that we have that most other industries don't have. That every day we can go in and actually create something with and collaborate, rather than just maybe doing the same sort of process day in, day out, which I know other mates of mine do, and they do it for the paycheck. They don't do it for the love of it. Whereas I'd say there's a huge amount of passion in our industry. And I think that's the key word, is that we can put into the work that we do. And I think it's about championing that more than we currently do. I think, and that's not just from senior people. I think that's on us young people on this call, talking to friends, family, sisters and brothers of people who are looking for work experience or looking to talk to people about stuff. I think we're very easily closed off to talking to people about what we do, because we think it's boring to them. But in actual fact, that one conversation could spark curiosity that could then spark someone's career.
Okay. And what about you, Sandy? I mean, would you, if you know what you know now, would you go into the same industry?
I think so. I guess coming from a very conservative immigrant background from my parents, the sell-in was never, I want to go into creative industry. The sell-in was, I'm going to go to business school and then conveniently find a job in a creative sector. And I think, it just depends on who it is that you're talking to, right? So it's someone who looks for a bit more meaning than just going in for their 9 to 5 and just be in and out of work. Definitely, this is where you can find sort of build meaningful connections, not just with your team, but with clients as well, right?
And you, Annabelle, I know you kind of not saying you fell into the industry, but I don't know what you wanted to do when you left school and university.
Yeah, no, I had a very different career path. I wanted to be a professional classical singer, and I went to go and study music at Manchester. And after a year and a half, I realised what a terrible idea that was. And so very quickly kind of jumped into a different career path, and left there and found myself a marketing internship, and from there jumped into a role in brand marketing, and then worked with agencies and realized, well, this is really where the fun is. Let's jump over there. So I had a very fluid background of things, and I haven't really ever interviewed properly for a role before. I've always kind of been very lucky and had connections with people and be able to jump back and forth from things. And I definitely haven't had to go through the hideous process of having my CV checked off of going, have you got a degree? Because I don't, I'm a uni dropout. But for me, I would always recommend to someone to come into this industry who is first and foremost a people person. And that's the most important thing. And being able to communicate with people, to be open, to be able to be that helpful person, to be able to go and do anything and just be that willingness and that grit and determination to keep going. That's what this industry needs, and it needs those people still to be coming into it. It's obviously it's a really difficult time because most agencies, I would assume kind of within this group, have lost talents, and so won't be necessarily recruiting for people over the next year. Will most likely just be going back to those people who they made redundant, saying, hi, we need you back now, can you come back? That's definitely what's happening in our field anyway over at Smarts. And so I think it's just keeping that motivation for people to be able to keep persevering and coming into this industry. So if you can, in the meantime, go and learn something, go and do something, get some work experience of something that could be relevant, and just keep your experience open. Experience is, in my mind, more important than anything.
Thanks. And Gary, are you in your career of choice, or did you want to be a ballerina or whatever, as the advertising seems to be suggesting at the moment?
I actually come from media and communications background. That was my degree. And then I went into video production, not knowing anything about video and production. So I basically learned everything on the job. As you started at the beginning, it was meant to be an internship for a month, just to, get myself into the industry, have a bit of taste of this, bit of taste of that, and just ended up staying 2 years later. I'm still here. So I literally learned on the job. So going back to Molly's point, you don't need to study for a specific thing to be able to do that thing. I just found myself to love it, and it's not what I was studying to do. I was also studying sociology, and I ended up doing completely something different. So going back to your original question, I would still tell someone to join the industry. It's great. It's creative. It's not constantly being sat at your desk. You're able to create things and have a vision and see it being made and see it being produced. I think that's the greatest thing for me, having a plan, having a vision, and then someone executing it and I see it come to life. I think is one of the best things, and also the exciting things of it, traveling to shoots or traveling to events. So I'm lucky. I don't like using the word lucky because I work hard for it, but I'm lucky enough to, work with clients in the US, so traveling to the US. And it's all exciting, and I would definitely say, yeah, do it. It's a creative industry, one of the best industries, in my opinion.
I can see a campaign coming on for Stephen here after it's over to keep and attract talent in the industry from all the young ones. Molly, what about yourself? Tricky one for you to answer this, but are you doing the job you really want to do?
No, I hate it. No, I mean, I've to be honest, ever since I was at school, I wanted to go into this. So I was quite lucky. I did it at university, and then I got a placement with Stephen, and then I managed to work in loads of different agencies, all different Pimento members. So I got a kind of a wide variety of different specialisms and cultures in that sense. So I did know that. Then I kind of narrowed it down even further to kind of digital marketing. And then obviously I never really left Pimento, and I worked there my final year of uni too. So I've kind of lived and breathed just Pimento for such a long time. That's all I know at the moment.
I'm glad you do, and I'm glad you're with us. So listen, thank you to all of you guys and girls. I'm going to open it up. In fact, perhaps the the oldest member on this call today, I don't think you remember when he was your age, has got some questions. David.
Great. Yeah, I thought I'd pipe up as the oldest person on the call. I don't think there's anybody older than me, so I think I win the prize. I think I want to follow up on something James said. I think it's really important, not just as the younger members of this call, but I think everybody at the moment has got to discipline themselves, right? In terms of what time you start work. Do get away from your desk to have lunch. Get out for a walk if you can. I think we've all, and anybody who has a team working for them, I think this is a message that we've got to get out there, that people need to have some downtime. They need to, otherwise they'll just go bonkers, just go completely crazy. And we've had now this for what, seven odd months, and it's starting to wear down. So, and we know, as Stephen Woodford has indicated, this is going to go on for much longer. So I think as a group, we've got to look at our people we work with, and make sure that we impress upon them that they need to take some time. I think, again, somebody else mentioned here that there is one great advantage at the moment. I think we're able to support our clients better. And let's also let's put a positive head on this as well. We will come out of this, and the marketing industry as a whole will probably be one of the ones that benefits from it most. So let's all put a positive head on. When we do come out of this, it's going to be crazy. The only bad news for me is that if this goes on for too much bloody long, I'm going to be hanging my boots up. So hopefully it doesn't last for too much longer, and I get a chance to work with you guys for a bit longer and have some fun enjoying it as well. So discipline yourself, enjoy it, look after your clients, just do the best you can in hard times. And I hope you all have a great Christmas.
Great advice there, and thank you very, very much for that, David. Nathan, I mean, you're still classified as a young one, I think, just about. I want to bring you into the conversation, Omega. I mean, you built an agency as a young person, and you employ lots of young people. How are you, managing in these difficult times with your team?
It looks like he's on a call, Stephen. I think he's picked up.
He's double. Yeah. Well, I caught on the hop. In which case, I'm going to throw our youngest member from perhaps our oldest to our youngest member of the call today, Sage. I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, mate. I'm going to bring you into the call, mate. Sage is just 18. He's just qualified, just come out of I think video production degree. Is that right?
No, sixth form. Sixth form. You're
even younger than that. I can't even remember that far back. But you've chosen basically to go straight into the video production industry, and you've got a reel together, and you're looking to sell your services to agencies and collaborate. What's your perspective? I mean, you're obviously working from home. You haven't got your first job yet. How do you feel about the prospect of getting into the business?
Well, I think I'm excited because I think that if you're able to deliver more value, people or businesses are more open to changing who maybe they normally go with. So there are opportunities. But something I have struggled with was I was hoping to do a lot of networking in person with people, meeting people and building connections and growing that way. And obviously it's much harder over Zoom to build that personal connection and do that. So I think that's been my main struggle in getting work.
Okay, and then in terms of the sort of thing you want to be doing, just so I'm absolutely clear, directing, producing, a bit of both?
Well, the company I started, so Rogue Divisions, we're a commercial production company, so producing videos. But the long-term plan and what we hope to do is move more into the branded content space, which is what I personally find more interesting, and actually making stuff that is interesting in and of it, no offense to kind of your standard commercials, but more interesting in and of itself. Audiences actually will seek it out, and then brands attach themselves to it. So that is the type of work we want to do.
Thank you. Good. Well, the best of luck to you. It's great to have someone as young as yourself. Nathan, I think, that's just on the call. He's now able to talk. Nathan, I'll just take you off mute. Quick question for you, if I may. Saying that, it wasn't so long ago that you were a young one. You're probably now slightly older than some of the younger ones on this call, but compared to David, obviously anyone's young. What's your view in terms of keeping people motivated and in your team? Because obviously you've got lots of young people working with you who've actually had to operate from home. You're still operating from home too, aren't you?
Yeah, is that a question for me? Sorry, I was just dialing in.
Yeah, that's a question for you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, my signal's terrible. Yeah, essentially for us, it's been quite hard. I think what we did originally to keep people all engaged was we got them all on one-to-one sessions because everyone's responded in a different way. So, for example, our dev team were much more keen to have more interaction, which I thought was weird because I thought being introverted, they probably didn't want to communicate. But a lot of the younger people have been particularly worried about the knock-on effects and consequences. Our team really thrive on socials, and obviously we haven't been able to do that. So we've had to look at chocolate tastings with Hotel Chocolat and stuff like that to try and engage people and to try and keep them motivated because a lot of them are feeling very isolated. So socials have gone through the roof, but it's all been virtual stuff. And then for me, it's mainly about these one-to-one sessions where we're like, let's cut the crap. Let's just talk about how you personally are feeling. Like, because what you feel, Dev, over here might be totally different to how project manager feels over there. So trying to really understand each person as an individual, as opposed to broad brush, oh, you all must be struggling because it's COVID. Some people love working from home, right? And some people are thriving, but some people have home situations that aren't great. Their parents might have been put on furlough. Suddenly the whole family can't pay the rent. So actually, it's about each person as an individual.
Thank you for that. Well, look, sadly, I'm afraid we've come to the end of this week's call. I want to thank the panel. I want to thank you all for attending too. It was great to hear from you and great eloquence too. I was very impressed. I don't know why I shouldn't be, because you know, obviously you guys are hugely talented and hugely, you know, experienced in your own areas of expertise. A couple of things I want to mention. Next Wednesday will be hosted now by Nathan, in fact, a quick fire. We've got a 5 p.m. club. The original Pimento 6 p.m. clubs are now 5 p.m. clubs, and they're virtual. They're a lot of fun. We had one last week and it was absolutely brilliant. I think we got a 5 out of 5, a perfect score on our survey. Somehow Nathan's going to go beyond that next week. It's a great opportunity to collaborate and meet new members of the Pimento Network and the guests that come along. So do join us. There'll be breakout rooms, and you have to bring your own drink. That's the downside, I'm afraid. Also, a quick reminder to agency heads. We've teamed up with a group of professionals in the HR, training, mental health management, recruitment and finance areas to offer a really comprehensive low-cost outplacement service this time. It's for people who have lost their jobs, and employers are able to basically help them get back into employment, rebuild their confidence, hone their CVs and so on. The project's called What Next, and it's being supported by the Alliance, by the PRCA, and by other associations. Really keen to get as many people engaged on that. And Isabel has just published, or publishing now, a link to where you can find out more information. It's not exclusively, obviously, for the owners of agencies. It can also be, obviously, individuals that are willing to invest in themselves. And lastly, next week, it's the turn of the M&A advisors. We've got, obviously, since COVID, there's been a flurry of sales. Agencies have, been up for sale, a number of key purchases. We've got 5 leading M&A specialists on the call next week talking about the market, along with an agency owner who's just been through the process and completed the sale. So if you're looking to acquire or to be acquired at the moment, it should be a really interesting session. So thanks once again. It's 12 o'clock on the dot. We've actually done very well this week. Goodbye to all of you. Have a terrific end of the week, and thank you once again for joining us. Cheers. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Stephen.